Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. In today's BOOKMAS video, I wanted to share my pile of possibilities along with some recommendations for Epistolary January. If you haven't heard of Epistolary January, it is a readathon that I will be hosting along with a few other lovely ladies, and I'll have all their channels linked below, as well as the announcement videos for the readathon. It's a readathon dedicated to reading epistolary books, so I'm really excited. I love the epistolary format so much. The idea is to read stories told through letters, journal entries, emails, etc. Before this readathon even became a thing, I did share a video sharing some epistolary book recommendations, and I'll have that linked below as well. And we also have a set of prompts as well. They're fully optional. If you read one epistolary work in the month of January, you've participated, but these prompts are really fun if you wanted to follow along. Of course, you can use one book to meet various prompts, and I will go through all of these prompts and share some recommendations as well as what I'm hoping to read. The first prompt is love letters, and that is to read an epistolary romance, and I did have a hard time finding recommendations for this one just because I haven't read very many epistolary romances. But for this one, you could read The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel, Gaynor, and Webb. It's one of my favorite historical fiction novels of all time, and it's all told through letters for the most part. And even though Christmas is in the title, it's not the most Christmassy of books, so I think it's totally fine to read it in January. You could also read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is one of my favorite fantasy novels, and although the whole story is not epistolary, there are several letters throughout between the two main characters. And they're both journalists as well, and it just has a lot to do with letter writing, typewriters, and all of that, so I think this would be a great one to read. Now, as for what I'm hoping to read, I do have a pile of possibilities for each prompt because I can't stick to strict TBRs, and I've written down various titles, and I guess we'll see what I end up reading. But the first one that I'm thinking of maybe reading is Things We Didn't Say by Amy Lynn Green. I believe this is a Christian romance set during World War II in German prisoner of war camps, and I have also heard that it's epistolary, so that's definitely an option. And I've also heard really good things about Our Yellow Tape Letters by Caitlin Miller, and it's another Christian historical World War II romance as well, so those are two options. Another Christian historical fiction is Yours Truly, Thomas by Rachel Fordham, and I don't believe this is fully epistolary, but I do believe there are letters in it, and I've heard great things about this. I did try to read another book by this author and it wasn't really for me, so this is a big maybe, but another option. Another option is a classic that was published, I believe, in 1900, so right at the end of the Victorian era, and that is called The Visits of Elizabeth, and the author is Elinor Glyn. I believe it's quite short as well, and it's fully epistolary. It says it follows the experiences of a young girl named Elizabeth as she embarks on a series of visits to various relatives and acquaintances, navigating the complexities of social expectations, family dynamics, and her own youthful exuberance. This is tagged as romance, but I'm not sure if there is a romance in it, so I don't know if it'll fully fit this prompt, but it's another option. And another classic that is definitely a romance that could work for this prompt is An English Woman's Love Letters by Laurence Housmann. And it says it's an epistolary work that presents the intimate correspondences of an unnamed English woman to her beloved, detailing her thoughts, emotions, and experiences surrounding love and longing. That's another option for the romance category. The second prompt is Lost Mail, and that is a classic or a book by an author that is no longer with us. You could read Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's a great epistolary work told through journal entries and some letters, and it's a really great one. You could also read Evelina by Burney. This was written in the 1700s, and it's fully told through letters. And you also could read The Woman in White by Wilkie or Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. These are also epistolary novels. The two classics I mentioned for the first prompt as options would definitely fit this prompt as well, but I'm also thinking of maybe reading The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. It's one that I really need to get to. It says that it's a satire on hell's latest novelties and heaven's unanswerable answer, so I'm both excited and nervous to read it, but we'll see if I get to it in January. Another option is Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. This is a beloved classic. I've never read it, and I do really want to. And this one I believe would also fit as romance. It is tagged as romance on Goodreads. And it says it's about Jerusha, who is an 18-year-old girl living in an orphan asylum, and she's told that a mysterious millionaire has agreed to pay for her education. He chooses to remain anonymous, and I believe they are just writing letters to each other. So this sounds really interesting. The next prompt is Free Shipping, and simply that is a book that was free. And to me, I think a library book counts, anything you can read on Project Gutenberg, so definitely classics count, or if it was a book that was gifted to you that is epistolary, that all works. So for me, it'll be either a book I read off of Project Gutenberg or a library book, because a lot of these books that I want to read, I'll have to get from the library, so that prompt will definitely be fulfilled. The next prompt is correspondence, and that is to read any book that contains letters between people, whether it's fictional or not. I already recommended Divine Rivals. That would also work for this prompt, as there are many letters between the two main characters, as well as Born of Gilded Mountains by Amanda Dykes. This one is in third person, but there are lots of letters between our two main characters, Mercy and Rusty, and it just adds such a nice element to the story. I love that there are lots of letters in this one, so this is definitely a good one for this prompt. I'm really hoping to read 84 Charing Cross Road for this prompt. I've been wanting to read this for a while, and this readathon is the perfect time. And it says that it is a collection of letters between our author, Helene, who was a freelance writer living in New York City and a used book dealer in London. It says, through the years, though never meeting and separated both geographically and culturally, they share a winsome, sentimental friendship based on their mutual love for books. Their relationship, captured so acutely in these letters, is one that will grab your heart and refuse to let go. I've heard nothing but praise for this, and I really hope that I love it. I could also read some letters from this massive book. It is a collection of Elizabeth Gaskell's letters, and of course, I'm not gonna read this entire thing, but I may pick it up and read a few letters here and there throughout the month. And yeah, we'll see if I get to any of these. And another book that I'm really interested in is called Henrietta's War, News from the Home Front, 1939 to 1942. I believe it's the first book in a series, and it sounds really, really interesting. It says, Henrietta wishes she was the kind of doctor's wife who knew exactly how to deal with the daily upheavals of war. But then, everyone in her close-knit Devonshire village seems to find different ways to cope. There's the indomitable Lady B, who writes to Hitler every night to tell him precisely what she thinks of him. The terrifyingly efficient Mrs. Sabernack, who relishes the opportunity to sit on umpteen committees and boss everyone around. Flighty, flirtatious Faith, who is utterly preoccupied with the latest hats and flashing her shapely legs. And then there's Charles, Henrietta's hardworking husband, who manages to sleep through a bomb landing in their neighbor's garden. With life turned upside down under the shadow of war, Henrietta chronicles the dramas, squabbles, and loyal friendships that unfold in her affectionate letters to her dear childhood friend, Robert. Warm, witty, and perfectly observed, Henrietta's War brings to life a sparkling community of determined troopers who pull together to fight the good fight with patriotic fervor and good humor. It sounds really, really fun, so that's another option for that prompt. I might actually reread Divine Rivals because I do want to read Ruthless Vows at some point this winter, but I want to reread this one first. It's been a little bit, and I forgot a lot of what happened, so before I read this book, I want to reread this one, and it would definitely fit this prompt. The next prompt is airmail, and that is to read a book that is set in a foreign country. So obviously it depends on where you are from. I live in Canada. Most of the books I mentioned, or if not all of them, are not set in Canada, so I can read any of those for this prompt. But I do want to try to read an epistolary novel that is not set in the US or England, as the majority of books I read are set in those countries. And so I'm thinking of reading Meet Me at the Museum by Anne Youngson, and this one is set in Denmark. It says, when the curator of a Danish museum responds to a query about ancient exhibits, he doesn't expect a reply. When Tina Hopgood first wrote it, nor did she. Professor Anders Larsen, an urbane man of facts, has lost his wife, along with his hopes and dreams for the future. He doesn't know that a query from a Mrs. Tina Hopgood about a world-famous antiquity in his museum is about to alter the course of his life. Oceans apart, an unexpected correspondence flourishes as they discover shared passions, history and nature, for useless objects left behind by loved ones, for the ancient and modern world, what is lost in time, what is gained, and what has stayed the same. Through intimate stories of joy, anguish, and discovery, each one bears their soul to the other. But when Tina's letters suddenly cease, Anders is thrown into despair. Can this unlikely friendship survive? And I know a couple people who have read this and enjoyed it, so I'm really, really hopeful that if I do read it, I love it. The next prompt is package, and that is to read a book that is longer than 400 pages. The Woman in White is definitely an option. This copy has 500 pages. It also depends on the edition you have, but this one would definitely work. Evelina is another option. It is over 400 pages as well. And for this one, you could also read Marmee by Sarah Miller. This one's also over 400 pages, and it is all journal entries from Marmee's perspective, the events of Little Women from Marmee's perspective. I loved this book. For this prompt, what I'm hoping to read is To the Bright Edge of the World by Ewan Ivey. fantasy. I've read The Snow Child by this author and enjoyed it, and this one I believe is also set in Alaska, and it's historical fiction, and it's also epistolary, and it is over 400 pages, so that is an option. I don't want to know too much going in, as I believe it's magical realism. With those types of stories, I generally try not to read the summaries. Another book over 400 pages is The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and this one's an epistolary mystery, so I'm really curious about this one. And I believe a couple of the other books I've mentioned on my pile of possibilities are also over 400 pages, so we'll see what I end up reading for that prompt. The next prompt is journal, and that is to just read a book with journal entries, and you could definitely read Marmee for that one. This entire book is Marmee's journal entries. You could also read Dracula, as a lot of this story is journal entries as well. And another great option for this prompt, and it's quite short as well, is the first volume in the Emma M. Lyon series. It's a really fun series, all told through Emma's journal entries, and it's set in the Victorian era in a fictional town, and it's just so much fun. Another option for this prompt that I might read is Flowers for Algernon, and I believe this is like a science fiction classic. I don't know too much going in, and I honestly don't want to. I kind of want to be surprised and see what the story entails. But I was recommended it recently and it did capture my interest. So we'll see if I end up reading it, what I think of it. And I believe it is in journal entries or log entries or something similar. So we'll see if it fits this prompt. Either way, I'm sure it'll fit some other prompt. I may also pick up Emma M. Lyon Volume 3. I did pick this up, but soft DNF'd it. I just wasn't in the mood for it. So if I am in the mood in January, I may pick this one up. And the very last prompt is email, and that is to read a contemporary epistolary novel featuring text and or email. A great option for this prompt is Authentically Izzy by Pepper Basham. I did try reading this book and it's not really for me, but it definitely does fit this prompt. I don't know if The Appeal by Janice Hallett has emails or text messages, but it is contemporary, so I would count that for this prompt for myself. And there's also a book called Ella Minnow P. It is a novel in letters by Mark Dunn, and it says it's contemporary but also dystopian fantasy. So I'm not sure, but I had a harder time finding contemporary novels that actually sound interesting to me personally. So we'll see what I end up reading for this prompt. But for Ella Minnow P, I love the title. I keep wanting to say Ella Minnow P. I don't know if that was intentional, but it looks like it's really good and a lot of people that I trust have loved it. It's set on a fictional island off the coast of South Carolina, and it says Ella's trying to save her friends, family, and fellow citizens from the encroaching totalitarianism of the island's council, which has banned the use of certain letters of the alphabet, I get the title now, as they fall from a memorial statue of Nevin Nollop. As the letters progressively drop from the statue, they also disappear from the novel. And it says the result is a hilarious and moving story of a girl's fight for freedom of expression, as well as a linguistic tour de force sure to delight word lovers everywhere. It sounds really fun, so we'll see if I end up reading that one. So those are the books that I'm thinking of reading, as well as some recommendations I wanted to share for the various prompts. I am very excited for Epistolary January. I love novels told through letters and journal entries and all of that. It's going to be such a fun month. I can't wait to read all the books that are epistolary. I'm really excited. But that is it for this video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. If you plan on participating, do let me know in the comments what you're thinking of reading, if any of these recommendations sounded interesting. And I really hope that we all have a wonderful month of reading ahead of us. The first month of the new year. I am so excited. But thanks, friends, so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next Bookmas video. Bye!